have a lead.
Look at us now, tip to...
Ooh, Jesus.
Shout out to Morning Kombat.
Do you want a margarita? Yes! My God!
to us, doing what we love. But it's time to bang. Oh, yeah, turkey sandwiches for days. The PFL Championships are upon us. Hey, why don't you go to Best Buy and punch somebody over a toaster? Hey, it's Morning Kombat, Black Friday edition. Happy Thanksgiving to you, and welcome on in. You're watching this right now on Friday, November 29th, 2024. Brian Campbell, Luke Thomas, co-host, possibly of the greatest combat sports show that's ever been put together. But Luke, to be fair to the listeners in the time-space continuum, we are recording this on Wednesday, a holiday just the same. Where I come from, they call it Valley New Year. So just in case we get any of the facts wrong by Friday, I wanted to let the people know.
I also want to let you know I don't want to do this for 2 hours. Let's wrap this shit up.
All right. Okay. Well, hey, we're going to have a great show for you. We're going to update the latest news, maybe even make a pick for PFL Championships. And then, of course, answer your questions in a holiday mailbag to close the show. Luke,
BC, I want you to know that it just like the PFL, ahead of the PFL Championships, I, like the PFL, have put no effort into understanding more about what's happening. I want you to know that. So
like
I followed their lead.
Like the PFL founder, I don't have a favorite MMA fight, and I typically don't watch MMA in my free time. So there you go. Hey, those horns are responsible from one man and one man only. The third member of this team, Long Island Luke Nocita of the Main Card Minute Pod fame, I say. Main Card, how are you? Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Oh, happy Thanksgiving to you guys, to all the donks. I'm doing a little rough this morning on Wednesday. Come Friday, I should be feeling a lot better. We're going live right after this video, 1 p.m. Come watch the Main Card PFL with me.
There you go. There you go. That's what's going on today, Friday, as you're watching this. We are recording this on a Wednesday. Luke, I just got off a red eye from LA for the Ryan Garcia Rukia Anpo press conference. Did you catch it at all? Did you see the hijinks?
No, over under 5. How many crosses did Ryan Garcia burn? How many was it?
He was, dude, did you see how relaxed and chill he was?
I did. I caught some of the highlights of the face off. The Japanese dude looks fucking huge, by the way.
And he called him out for being a weight missing fraud, a fake king, and then crumbled up a piece of paper, threw it in his face, and said "F you" to Rye Guy. And Garcia just laughed. I was like, okay.
Again, he did not seem manic, but I'm guessing that there's been an adjustment to whatever he's been ingesting, and it's making a difference, at least for the time being. So,
that's very optimistic of you for the future.
Hey, by the way, but again, we don't know. By the time this airs, we don't know if this is actually still in play. But on Tuesday night, Oscar De La Hoya was like, there's no fight happening because I haven't signed off on it. Do you have anything to share about that?
Fan Mio went out and said that was cap. Ryan Garcia agreed. And I saw a report from Brunch Boxing that basically they believe that Oscar's unhappy with the financial split, but that Ryan is technically allowed to do this fight outside of Golden Boy because it's an exhibition. So they'll figure that out. Hopefully we still have a fight December 30th. But I did hear Ryan tell Ariel Helwani in their interview that he did get clearance from the state commissions here in the U.S. to take this exhibition in Japan. So
he would have to, yeah.
Yeah, so that's where we're at with that. But it should be an interesting scrap. Happy to be with you, though. Happy to be talking about Thanksgiving and all that other good stuff. Look, let's get into, like and subscribe to this great show. There's our social handles. You can follow our YouTube channels there just the same. Don't buy our merch at the moment. We're going to figure out a new way for the new year, and we'll get back to you on that. But if you got old merch like Saul, wear that shit all the time.
Wear it, bitch.
Do you think Saul only dresses in MK?
80%.
80%. Okay.
80%.
All right. Luke, let's get into our first topic here. We got the mailbag. I mean, Luke, do you have back to the split screen first. Let me direct here. Luke, you do have experience with mailbags, right? Like years worth, right?
I don't even know what the fuck you're referring to.
a male testicular sack, Luke?
I mean, I've got my own nut sack, if that's what you're asking. Yes.
All right. Thanks for ruining it. First rule of improv. All right. We'll get to that mailbag.
First rule of improv is don't let Brian Campbell rope you into his bits.
Skids. Let's get into our first topic, which is the final pay-per-view of the year for PFL. It's going to go down in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Today, Friday afternoon, 1 p.m. Eastern is the main card, but I believe 7:15 a.m. Eastern is when the showcase fights start. It's looking like upwards of 16, 17 fights on this card. The PFL
Also,
World
not a pay-per-view. Not a pay-per-view.
Are you sure? I read it was a pay-per-view.
Yeah, not a pay-per-view. I mean, you have to have an ESPN Plus subscription or whatever.
Okay, I take that back. I take that back, PFL. Not a pay-per-view, but the World Championship just the same. 6 divisions will get a $1 million winner and a champion crowned. I believe there's 3 other title fights on the card involving the regional promotions, PFL, MENA, some of those other ones. But Luke, we set this up on Monday's show being heavy-handed about the PFL in 2024. Let's put those topics aside and actually talk about this card. In the main event, a man who has become a PFL mainstay, a star over the last few years, Brendan Loughnane, will be there in that main event, going for the Featherweight Championship against Timur Kazirev. What do you think about this card as a whole in terms of what it's going to offer here for the hardcore MMA fan?
I mean, I think it offers a lot. By the way, Kizriev is awesome. He's undefeated. He had, to me, a bit of a tougher run to the tournament to get here. I think the wins over Brett Johns, Enrique Barzola, and Gabriel Braga are much better than the ones that Loughnane has. Now, Loughnane has some good ones, too. He had the split over Kai Kamaka III, but you get the idea. That's a pretty great, you're asking, are these world-class guys who are competing against one another? The answer is quite obviously yes. And as you mentioned, it's at the top of the card, but the co-main event is pretty good. I think Impa Kasanganay is about to become a two-time millionaire winner as he goes up against Dovletsdan Yagshimuradov. He's going to fight him, who we remember
Isn't
from
that
the
the same
Bellator.
thing as me doing this, Luke, by the way? Isn't that? But I don't know.
A little, yeah, it's a little bit that way. He's fighting Dovletsdan Yagshimuradov. I mean, I'm not trying to say it without coming across like a dumbass either.
Dovletsdan Yagshimuradov.
But also BC, you've got Gaethje Rabadanov, who's the hammer out of Bellator, fighting Brent Primus. Magomed Umalatov taking on Shamil Musayev. These are two undefeated guys, the ones I just mentioned. Are there guys that you know a lot about? Probably for most of you, the answer is no. If you're asking me, are these quality fighters and some pretty good matchups along the way? Yes, it's good MMA. There's no question about it.
Yeah, indeed. There is definitely some things to like here. And, whether you've been following the story of Loughnane, who's been a consistent force atop his division here with the PFL, or the 17-0 Kizriev, a lot of people can make a name for themselves. Luke, you mentioned that co-main event where Dakota Ditcheva, with her perfect record in finishing fighters, takes on a very tough out and former UFC title challenger, Tyler Santos. Who do you think on this card as a whole has the biggest opportunity to sort of be the lead story coming out of today's non-pay-per-view event?
So, okay. The single best answer to that is probably Dakota Ditcheva. Because one, she would be, a tournament winner here. She would get the $1 million, right? But beating Tyler Santos is kind of a big deal. It would be the biggest win of her career by far. It's a name that people know. People remember what Tyler Santos did to Valentina Shevchenko. Some think that the results of that bout was controversial. Ditcheva, who already has a little bit of hardcore buzz, could really take that to another level with something like this. But also, I mean, you can't really lose sight of what PFL has done. Brendan Loughnane, UFC or Contender Series cast off. If he won 2 of these, can you imagine that you lost on Contender Series because you went for a takedown and then you ended up winning millions of dollars in the end? It's kind of crazy to think about. Also, BC Impa Kasanganay is on the receiving end of maybe in his case, worst knockout loss, but the best KO we've ever seen from Joaquin Buckley. And now he is on the verge of getting 2 of these. It's like these guys found not just what they were looking for, but maybe something better and something different, but absolutely unimaginable at the time in which you saw them suffer some of these setbacks. So there's a real interesting redemption arc and or this opportunity for Ditcheva to move through a passing of the torch is maybe not quite the right thing, but the emergence, the ascendancy of somebody who in the women's game, there's not really been a ton of exciting people breaking through. This would be huge. This would be huge. So like, this is what I mean, man. There's like a lot to like on this card, both from like, are these good competitive fights? Absolutely. And are there potential breakouts and great storylines too? It's just, dude, the PFL, BC, I'm honestly not even trying to beat them up. Have they promoted this fucking card at all?
Dude,
like it doesn't feel like it.
Monday of this week, you and I found out this card was this week. That says a lot. It does say a lot.
It's just crazy given the quality that's on here, but yeah.
All right, when we talk about breakout opportunities here, let's talk about Ditcheva a little bit closer. 26 years old from England, 14-0 start to her career, all finishes. 13-0 start, excuse me, going for 14 here. But Luke, when we look at the odds, she's, according to DraftKings, a minus 380 favorite against the plus 300 Santos. So explain that to me. I understand Ditcheva's on fire at the moment, finished every opponent she faced, but I'm not seeing elite opponents up to date on her record at this point. She's going against somebody against Santos, who I thought beat Shevchenko in her title opportunity, is 3-0 in the PFL since making the move from UFC, submitted Liz Carmouche, a former champion, in her debut. Wouldn't you think the experience, the size, the toughness of Santos should make these odds a little bit closer? I'm a little bit surprised by this.
Yeah, I'm trying to look them up. Oh, here we go. I wanted to see this. So Ditcheva, as you mentioned, about a minus 380 favorite. You know, I'm looking at some of her other fights. Against Chelsea Hackett, she was minus 2,000. Against Jenna Bishop, even more than this one, minus 360. Against Lisa Malden, minus 2,400. These are blowouts. The Jenna Bishop one being the least of them, but in my judgment, Tyler Santos is much better than Jenna Bishop, or at least at a bare minimum from a style contrast is a much tougher fight. I'm with you. I think that I understand the enthusiasm. This is what I mean, BC. Like, I totally get the enthusiasm about Ditcheva. She looks like she's got something special that could be, could be very important for her division, her career, and for the women's game more generally. But you got to prove it against somebody like this first. And I think they're getting a little bit ahead of themselves because obviously she's gotten these tremendous wins. But, we always talk about this. If you've got nothing but finishes and you're heading into a big fight, it obviously means that you're good, right? It obviously means that, but it also means that maybe you didn't fight all the best people. And so it's a little hard to know about what is the reality. I think I would say this, BC, independent of the odds, I do see this fight as potentially competitive. Tyler Santos might have some finishing issues against an opponent like this. And I also think that Ditcheva is going to have to get pushed by people like this for us to even see what her game looks like. This to me is actually what's so important, is because, are the odds correct or not? I'll get Long Island Luke to pitch in here in just a second. But what I do think is the matchup itself could be really revelatory one way or the other about the limits of her game, maybe ultimately, and then currently how good they are. It's like a really great test case. Long Island Luke, do you find the odds to be a little bit out of whack?
100%. I do think Dakota wins the fight, but I thought maybe she'd be like a minus 150, minus 175, minus 380 or whatever you guys said. Talia's coming back at plus 320. I'm taking that all day.
Yeah, I get that. I totally get that.
Hey, maybe, but look, if Ditcheva breaks through, you almost look. I think one of the biggest losses PFL took this year was not being able to keep Kayla Harrison around, especially for a Cyborg super fight or another Pacheco matchup. If they can get Ditcheva to become this must-see force, which this fight gives her that opportunity, she'd be a champion, $1 million winner, and continue an unbeaten streak, whether she gets the finish or not. She really has that opportunity to become not the face of PFL, but one of the true building blocks. So this is an exciting fight. I agree on taking that plus money though with Santos, and I had it wrong. She didn't submit some Carmouche. That was her most recent fight. She scored a unanimous decision over Carmouche, but just the same, a very good matchup here. And Luke Loughnane also in that main event there in the featherweight final won the championship for PFL 2 years ago, but then was stopped by Jesus Pinedo in the 2023 tournament. So he's coming to climb back to the top there against the aforementioned unbeaten Kazirev. Luke, do you remember, trivia question, who the opponent of Loughnane was in the Dana White Contender Series when he was ridiculed for going for a takedown to secure the win?
I forget. Who was it?
Bill Algeo was the answer. Luke.
Bill Algeo, yeah, who's, by the way, a good fighter, but like, look at what Brendan Loughnane has done since that. Who's made more money? Like, I mean, already the answer is Brendan Loughnane, and if he goes and wins a fucking, another $1 million campaign, like, I don't know what to say at that point, man. Who won? Who really won?
Minus 325, however, is Kazirev your favorite, plus 260 Loughnane. Luke, they're telling you that Kazirev, who's already unbeaten, is going to continue on that way. Should this be a guy we talk about more in PFL conversations?
Kazirev, yeah, 29 years of age, as you indicated, already the favorite, as Al also indicated, had a much tougher run into the tournament. Both the guys got in off split decisions. In the case of Loughnane over Kaikamaka and then over Braga, who had his own kind of like, with the death of a loved one, had his own kind of comeback story that Kazirev sort of killed in the end. Yeah, he's awesome. Again, this is one of those ones where it's like, I don't know exactly how action-packed this will be. I think this one could be a little bit nip and tuck, but you just got two quality guys. And in Kazirev, he's gotten his ability to wrestle and to dominate the fight that way, I think is going to be pretty important. We'll see how it goes.
Luke, coming off the conversation we had on Monday about the unhappy Bellator fighters who were looking for more dates and maybe only got one this calendar year, it is surprising that this fight card on Friday in Saudi Arabia has like 16, 17 fights. And you're seeing some Bellator alums there, Jeremy Kennedy on the card, but you're not seeing the big names, the same names that have been upset about the lack of communication and the lack of opportunities in terms of getting fights. So if they can't be on this card, and if they can't regularly fight when PFL has so many brands, did we forget to say on Monday that this is PFL trying to phase out their high expensive contracts coming over from Bellator? Because that would be the only way to summarize it, correct?
If you're trying to phase them out, just let them go. I mean, that argument is hard for me to understand. Like, just let them go.
Then the whole thing's hard for me to understand. Why is Patricio Pitbull not in a featured fight on the prelim here? You know what I'm saying?
Because the way this card is built is the way PFL is built. It's designed to be a financial instrument to make a content product. It's not designed to be a fight promotion that organically makes fights. So they have to do something with PFL MENA on here, because that's who's footing the bill for this. That's where this fight is. It's ultimately in Saudi Arabia, right? And so they've got all these constraints about who they can book and how long the card can be and who can be on it. And then they have their tournament model, which they're stuck with. So now all of those guys have to be on the main card. And it just becomes a situation where, like, we're trying to finance and arrange content in a way that is like from the person paying the bill, which is this case the Saudis, onto the content itself. There's a direct pipeline, rather than like we're trying to, like, if you were trying to sell tickets to customers, would you build a card this way? Fuck no, you wouldn't build a card this way. That would be the dumbest shit imaginable. But they're not trying to build a card for customers. They're trying to build a card for the people who are paying for the card. And that's the PFL in a nutshell.
It
That's
seems like
how
the
they run
people
their
are
business.
paying for the card is Saudi, right? That's what you're talking about?
Yes, that's what I mean.
Yeah. All right. There you go. Hey, Brent Primus, though, at 39, Luke, former Bellator lightweight champion, had lost to Usman Nurmagomedov in the semifinals of the Bellator tournament. That fight was overturned due to the failed drug test. He went 3-0 this year in PFL, is in the tournament final here, and will be a plus 410 underdog against the minus 550 Gaethje Radzhabov. Would it be a nice story for Brent Primus at 39 to come all the way back here and cash out $1 million check in a tournament championship? Heck yeah, right?
I didn't see it coming. I didn't see it coming at all. To your point, this is like, I mean, this division to be this old is like freaking unheard of. But here he is. And I mean, the wins are actually pretty great too. Bruno Miranda, he polished him off with a rear naked choke in the second. Solomon Renfro, who had a run previously, a bit of a puncher there, he beat him in the third round with a rear naked choke. And then against everyone's favorite boxer / MMA fighter and champion of the pandemic, Clay Collard, he wiped him out via unanimous decision. So, like, I think Radzhabov is better than all of those guys. And I would say better than all of those guys considerably. To your point, I don't think there's no case to make him the favorite here. But dude, this is the PFL if they had their shit together, they would tell you about how many fighters that have been left on the side of the road of the game and they rescued and turned back into attractions and in certain cases champions, but they didn't. I think he's got an uphill climb against Radzhabov, but the fact that he's even here to begin with very surprising. And this is what the PFL is at its best. Sometimes anyway, it does really well.
Luke, Denis Goitsov will round out these tournament championship bouts at heavyweight here. I do have a question for you. He'll take on Oleg Popov, but for Goitsov, he made it all the way to the finals in 2023, got knocked out in the second round by Renan Fajeda. You still get to cash the $1 million check if he goes the distance here after having defeated some big names, by the way, did Goitsov and Linton Vassell, Thiago Santos, and then Timothy Johnson, big names for what's available to him. Would it be bittersweet, though, that he's not going through Fajeda to get it, who instead was left out so he could fight Francis Ngannou?
I think it's Goltsov. I saw that fight. I was there when he fought Fajeda. It was in D.C., and I walked past him and Fajeda. Dude, like, Goltsov is a big dude, too. Like both of them. I mean, obviously, Renan Fajeda is like a monster, but Goltsov's like a big guy. And you mentioned he beat Linton Vassell, stopped him. Thiago Santos stopped him, and then Tim Johnson stopped him and stopped the last two inside the first round, like just ran him over. Yeah, it would be a lot better. Dude, can you imagine that? If someone said you got to beat Linton Vassell, this version of Thiago Santos, and this version of Tim Johnson, and you can win, and then obviously it's to fight Popov, but like to get to those three, you can then fight for $1 million campaign. You'd be like, you take that, you know, if you're a Goltsov, you take that 10 days out of 10. Like, of course, obviously, yes. What a great way to make good money in the fight game. So, you know, you're talking about getting something back legitimacy-wise. Okay, but the PFL is also about just, you know, getting good money where good money is available. And this dude has found the best way to do that. If I can see.
Goltsov will be a plus 110 underdog, according to DraftKings, against the minus 130 Popov. Luke, do you know much about the 32-year-old Russian Oleg Popov, who has been has a 19-1 record overall and has been unbeaten this year in the PFL?
I saw the Steve Mallory bout, which he kind of polished him off, but I've not paid close attention to him. I'd be lying to the audience if I did. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, he beat Mallory, Davion Franklin, and Linton Vassell by decision to get to this point. Luke, would you say, though, that, I mean, it's been part of our running criticism of PFL and their current setup of where it's too horizontally built. There's too many, you know, watered down sub banners of what they're doing. If this is their championship card, it's kind of hard that we don't get Larissa Pacheco, you know, potentially defending her title or fighting for another season title. And the same thing with Renan Fajeda, because both were kept out for the big pay-per-view. Obviously, I think the best move for them, and you've sort of echoed the same thing, is to just rip up the script, combine the rosters into one, put a championship atop each division and compete, find out how good you can be. But would you say it's disappointing if you are cheering for the PFL and this championship card doesn't have two of their better fighters on there in Fajeda and Pacheco?
I think your question is totally fine. But I just think of all the problems that they got, that's the least of them, dude. I mean,
right? But they have these tournament setups, but then sometimes
out of
the tournament.
Okay. So fair enough. These are what you are identifying is correct. I don't want to suggest I'm in any way saying you're wrong. But like, why not just have Pitbull fight somebody on this card?
Yeah.
Why not have Patchy Mix fight Leandro Ego? Fucking Corey. Why is it Corey Anderson? Oh, because it's a Bellator fight. Who gives a fuck? Just put it on the card. Like, put some razzle dazzle on this bitch. And they don't. And this is why they have all these fucking problems. I mean, again, it's like every time you try to understand, like, why does the PFL do this as opposed to this? Like, this system is not perfect, but it works. And then they go to the other one. It's like you just follow the money. Follow the money with them. Like, that explains everything that they do. And it sort of tells you it's their 401k. It's a financial portfolio. It's not a fight promotion.
All right. Well, Luke, that's all I got to say about PFL Championships, which should start after this ends.
Yeah,
but
that's plenty. That's more than enough.
You can hop onto the Main Card Minute podcast. I think we're doing a live bong rip for every fight, right? Luke,
that's a yes.
Okay, sure. There you go. Hey, let's go to topic number 2. It's not finalized, but reporting is starting to leak out at what this February 22nd Riyadh Season Showcase in Saudi Arabia by Turki Al-Sheikh and company, the plans that promoter Eddie Hearn had previously said publicly that this would be the deepest, most amazing card in the history of Riyadh Season, which has been the last year plus in the sport of boxing. Subsequently, there's been some reactions to the reporting over the last day that say, hey, maybe one or more of the fighters rumored for this card could drop out. But There's been some rumors of other fights that could be added. Let's just talk about, from reporting from the likes of Dan Rafael and others, what this February 22nd Supercard is starting to look like. Not finalized, but Luke Thomas, if I told you you could tune into pay-per-view at a discounted rate, by the way, which is Turkey's new idea, and on February 22nd, you could see Daniel Dubois defending his IBF heavyweight title against Joseph Parker, Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol in a must-see rematch for the light heavyweight championship, Jaron Boots Ennis versus Virgil Ortiz Jr. at 154 pounds, Carlos Adames defending his middleweight belt against Hamza Shiraz, Zhilei Zhang coming back against Kabayel, who has been on a tear of late at heavyweight. Luke, even if one of those fell out, there's also rumors that Shakur Stevenson versus unbeaten prospect Kid Austin Floyd Schofield could be added in addition to those or replacing one of those. Luke, if we get 90%, 80% of the matchups I just told you, is it fair to say this sets a new precedent of how deep a boxing pay-per-view card can be in the modern era?
It's, again, I'm not a boxing historian, so I'm not trying to be, but I'm just trying to say, as someone who's been like watching boxing for a while, I've never seen a card like that. And again, to BC's point, it's not finalized, but what's like heavily rumored to believe to be anchor points of the card: Ortiz, Boots, obviously Dubois, Parker, and just down the list. That would be, I mean, here's the way to understand it. There's no way, even under a great enthusiasm, that a card like that is built without somebody like single-handedly making it happen. Like, you can't, the economics of it would never work in anywhere else other than someone extraordinarily wealthy and swooping in and just paying for it to happen. It cannot happen. Like that. It's not just like a good card. It's a card that is otherwise impossible to make. Like, that's how good it is. So, I don't know how long BC the Saudis have in boxing. Maybe one more year, maybe 100 more years. Who's to say? But if you want like big fights to be made and big cards to be made, you have to celebrate what you have now, because I don't know how you get this, but for someone like Turkey, just taking a financial bath. And I want to say, he did the $20 pay-per-view before. The results were not game-changing in any respect. I think it did quite poorly, as a matter of fact. It made no difference to piracy in the end, which is something I've been trying to explain to people. It just didn't work. And so you're not only taking a bath like to make the card to put all those names together, you're not going to get shit at the gate because they're going to put it in Riyadh. And then on top of it, you're not going to make any money on pay-per-view. This is what I mean. It is literally impossible to make this, but for someone else just swooping in and then just, putting their credit card on the table and saying, charge it to the card.
Luke, quality-wise, I don't think we've seen something like this in boxing. And that is even going back to the famed 1990s loaded pay-per-view cards that Don King would put out, where you could have Tyson, Chavez Sr., Christy Martin, right? We've seen some tremendous cards. This is a quality level that goes beyond. Luke, I got to compare this to almost like a UFC 205 or 217 type of comparison. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is out of this world. This has 3 fights at the top here that could headline their own pay-per-views when you're talking about Dubois, Parker, and don't forget Parker's red hot after the run of big names he's recently defeated. The Beterbiev Bivol sells itself. Jaron Ennis going to 154 against unbeaten Virgil Ortiz sells itself. Imagine if you're adding Shakur Stevenson, and there is talks that could happen now that William Zepeda is pulled out with an injury of the originally scheduled idea. And those other 2 fights are not anything you sneeze at. Those are very good cards. I mean, again, what you said is so right. Who knows how long? Who knows if we can expect stuff like this? Is this just is February kind of becoming a major for Riyadh season? It's the same time this year that they did the Ngannou versus Joshua card, which was also pretty deep at that time, not deep on this level. This is an eye-opener. This is a stop what you're doing and circle the calendar. This is incredible. If this is really what we can expect to get, I won't complain about the pacing. You can put Turki Al-Ashikin as an honorable member of all the state Hall of Fames across our country. I don't even care about that BS. Luke, give away trips to Saudi every 5 minutes on that show. We don't know offerings like this in the sport of boxing. This is like, hey, I know you're used to eating at Arby's, but like, here's a free pass to the Ruth Chris Steakhouse. Enjoy. I mean,
you know what it is? You know what it is? It's like going from Arby's to Fogo de Chao. You ever been to Fogo de Chao?
No.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Long Island Luke. Surely you have been to Fogo de Chao.
Never even heard of it.
Fogo de Chao. Is that a DC thing, Luke?
Oh my God. I am stuck around dullards. Oh, look at that. Our producer knows. Our producer, Matt, knows. Matt's been there. Fogo de Chao is a Brazilian steakhouse. It's a chain. Yeah, there's one in DC, but they're everywhere.
Oh, is that place in Vegas? They got one? I went to.
Where you have the meat.
Yeah.
You green or red, and if it's green, they'll just keep bringing it to your table.
I've been to that, and it's
okay.
Incredible.
Okay,
it's
yeah, thank you.
It.
Oh yes, no shit. Okay, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. That's what this card is. It's just Fogo de Chao. Is it like the very, 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 very nicest thing? Not exactly, but it's so much goodness. You just can't. You're stuffed. Versus, doing whippets in the back of an Arby's parking lot.
I got meat sweats at Fogo de Chao, Luke.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Dude, if you don't walk out of there without meat sweats and diverticulitis, what have you done? You've done nothing.
Come out of there looking to get a Jimmy John's patch on your shorts like Lesnar. Yeah, definitely. Could you see Lesnar just housing a place like that?
Oh, and then just can you imagine the commode destruction? It's like Jeff Daniels in Dumb and Dumber, just
By the way, we haven't heard from Lesnar at all since it came out about the Vince McMahon stuff.
Is it just that?
He hasn't competed in the WWE at all. I haven't seen him make any public appearances.
Was he in the documentary?
It was mentioned that he had.
But he didn't sit down with him?
No, he did not. And I think he's in that Vince McMahon report as Vince had texted him to set up the trafficking, like, hey, this woman I hired, she'll do anything for you too, which is just gross, Luke. Okay. It's gross. All right.
Yeah. I mean, everything that we ever loved as kids turns out horrible.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, Luke, let's go to topic number 3 and the continued fallout of Conor McGregor being found liable in the civil trial for sexual assault, rape, call it what you want. Luke, the fallout looks like this: sponsorships galore, dropping McGregor's likeness or association with Proper 12 whiskey. Many distribution companies saying they will no longer put McGregor products in their stores. Is this just the beginning in your eyes of more of this, as I guess McGregor kind of slowly getting himself canceled here as a result of this?
Yeah, well, we should be very careful, though. I mean, canceling is probably the right word in 2024, but there can be different kinds of canceling, and I want to be very clear about that. So this is something I've been spending a lot of time in the last, I don't know, when did the news break about this? Friday. Since then, speaking to people in Ireland and obviously in particular Irish media about like the lay of the land there and how everything's being received and whatnot. And here's what I've come to. It is very surprising, as we've talked about, for Americans to hear that like Conor McGregor is reviled in Ireland. And it is quite true. Everyone I talk to, both inside and even outside of combat sports, especially actually, says that his national stock has never been lower. And the way they, dude, here's, okay. Oh my God. Listen to this, dude. I had an Irish sports journalist tell me that they can't even really cover MMA anymore because, yeah, they would love to give attention to Ian Gary or Paul Hughes, but they can't because MMA is now so toxic because it's associated with Conor there. In other words, rather than there being this halo effect where Conor's popularity raises the profile, now his notoriety is dampening down enthusiasm across the country for MMA, or at least for the next, caring about things like Gary or the ascendancy of Paul Hughes. It's insane how bad it is. He is loathed there. So what you're noticing is brands are finally now cutting the cord to their relationship to him. But the amount of dislike and discontent about him has been stewing for quite some time. My understanding is they have had long-standing feelings of not liking this. You mentioned going there for the Callum Walsh fight and like hearing exactly that, which was pre-trial for this thing. Sure. Now imagine the trial comes in. A lot of these details go public. The public in Ireland has had enough. They've had enough.
Rightfully
to me,
so.
this is the interesting part, BC. He sold the Proper 12 whiskey business and had retained a job essentially as both public face, use of likeness, brand ambassador, all of these things. He lost a bunch of relationships with various distributors or supermarket or grocery chains there. That's bad enough. But the Proper 12 one to me is the most interesting, not merely because of its symbolism, which is significant. It's the brand that he basically founded. That's not really the reason. The real reason is because that's probably by a million miles, I'm going to say, his biggest source of income presently. Now it's gone now, but I mean up to this point. Because he wasn't fighting, so that's out there. Yeah, he did the Hollywood movie. I doubt that was for a lot, and how scalable is that? I don't know. This life around liquor, whether it was as brand ambassador or for his own properties now, the beer he had, those are his predominant sources of income. That has now been severely challenged. You'll note P. Diddy, I'm not saying that they're equivalent, but I am pointing out this. The biggest source of his present income was not money from the record business. It was from the similar role he held with Ciroc. And when that got challenged, a lot of his financial wealth got challenged. I bring all this up to say, BC, like it or not, and that people are going to, choose whatever they want here. I think that Proper 12 cutting ties with him makes the likelihood that he comes back significantly higher. Because now you have lost out on a major, major source of income.
Well,
road ahead looks rocky.
Can I counter you and say that while I'm sure he made a pretty penny as the brand ambassador, the likeness of Proper 12, he did sell the product for $600 million. So when we're talking about his biggest source of income, that's a giant pile. That's his biggest source of income.
I think it was actually less than that in terms of what he took home. I think it was, don't get me wrong, still in the hundreds of millions. We're talking about an enormous sum of wealth. But one, he spends the shit like it's on fire. I mean, we know that. And I'm guessing that nevertheless, losing all of this money still is a devastating financial hit given the larger portfolio of how he was making money. And again, getting pulled off the shelves there, it's going to take a long time before he gets that back. This is not just money he's losing for the next year, but potentially for a very long time. Finding some way to combat that. And also understand something, getting the money from a fight purse is probably pretty significant for him, obviously, because he's Conor McGregor. But we all know the story, BC. We talked about it on Monday. How much you can rehab your image with the car wash of a fight cycle is significant. There's a lot to be done there. And this dude needs rehab more than ever. But I do feel like losing that Proper 12 relationship really fucked things up for him. The Irish believe he had it coming. We'll see what it all means in the end.
Yeah, Conor would put out a statement just a few days ago saying, people want to hear from me. I needed time. I know I made mistakes. He would go on to frame the sexual assault allegation as, him having sex out of marriage, but still keeping his innocence in regard to that and saying, as much as I regretted, everything that happened that night was consensual. Luke, that would continue, and there was more in that Conor posting, but that would continue to his significant other, common law wife, Dee Devlin, who also spoke out on her social media in a lengthy multi-post rant, which really accuses the accuser, Nikita Hand, of being, not only money hungry and lying, but really pointing to a lot of that gray area and the evidence that is damning toward Nikita, and going the extra mile in trying to frame that, Dee saying her and Conor had an issue back then, but with the infidelity, but they dealt with it and things are changed now. And then attacking Hand's character for lying to her significant other, partying with Conor while she has children at home. Luke, this was not well received by anyone. I understand Dee, Conor's significant other, supporting him, and that side believes that he had done no harm in this case, I guess, outside of that infidelity. But is Dee forgetting all the times that since then where Conor's been found, like at the halftime of the Heat game in Miami with a girl in the bathroom that they shut down? I mean, this just came across as just the wrong posts at the wrong time, especially when Dee went to the level of, I'll raise my kids to, be Larry of women like you, when everyone else is responding, maybe you should raise your kids to not be like Conor. This is going in an area that you don't normally like to, Luke, putting the idea of infidelity up there on the crime level of the things he's been accused of. But doesn't this come off just as really tone deaf in a way?
I mean, I think that's being charitable. I don't have any interest in speaking about the inner workings of their marriage, in part because we have no fucking idea about the inner workings of their marriage. And also it's not our business. But I will say that I'll just say this. BC, what days did she show up to the trial? Do you recall?
The last two, I thought.
Yeah, right. When all of the forensic evidence that makes the strongest case for Nikita Hand, she was absent for all of that. There's a number of theories that we could launch about why she chose to do what she did in terms of these stories on Instagram. I don't think any of them paint a very happy picture. And for me, I know a lot of people have questions about legitimately important parts of the case, and I certainly understand that, but none of these people have any willingness to reconcile with the forensic evidence. They simply want to pretend that that is something that is not as important or otherwise not as meaningful or otherwise not as clear. And it's all of those things. It's the most important evidence. It's the strongest by a million miles. And it's the one that they cannot reconcile with, including her. And I think until people are willing to do that, their judgment about these matters should be taken not so seriously.
Yeah, I didn't like that posting at all, but who cares? What do I know, Luke? This is just gross. And then you get a lot of people really posting on social media the totality of the accusations against McGregor over the last 5 or 6 years, even though obviously not every single one had led to a result in court like this. But man, Luke, this guy needs
two different women who accused him of sexual assault. And by the way, there's more than that. I mean, I'm just referring to 2 different cases. There's certainly plenty more, but you have at least 2 cases where women went to police to accuse him. It moved through the justice system in Ireland, and then both in different ways. One had her house broken into and her significant other stabbed, and then the other one had her car firebombed outside of her Dublin apartment. Like, guys, you cannot claim to be people who are able to read evidence effectively and then make strong judgments about it if you are unable to understand the significance and the connectivity between these events.
It's well said, Luke. Let's put a bow on that right there and transition into why we're here. It's Thanksgiving mailbag time. We put the cry out to you to email us at morningcombat@gmail.com. Ask your questions. We like to have fun on the holidays.
Hey, pussy, you still there?
Are you talking to my cat? Or are you talking about Reggie J over here?
Talking about that bitch ass cat.
No, that's not fair. That's not fair.
I will spit in your face, Reggie Jackson.
No, this man needs to be protected for many great reasons.
That is it's not me and it's not your wife. Homie over there is your real significant other. Let's just be honest about that.
He made a choice. He put it, he put it on the line for me, Luke, and I had a decision to make. Would I reciprocate? And the answer was yes, Luke. Okay.
Who cleans his shit?
I'm Reggie Jackson's bitch.
Who cleans his shit? Who cleans his shit?
My son Chris. I did for years, but it finally got handed down. So I was very happy at that development. All right. Can you put Tukes on the litter box, please? Can you train her up the right way, Luke?
My daughter shits on the commode, mercifully.
Okay. I was talking about her cleaning the cat box, but thank you.
We don't have a cat box.
Oh, you don't have any more cats at the moment, correct?
Yeah, he's been dead for a few years, BC.
Oh, well, I mean, there's still time to maybe get a new one, but that's the discussion between you and the family. All right, on that note, let's get into our Thanksgiving mailbag questions. The first one comes to us from Dean. Hey, guys, extra long-time listener and just huge fan of you both. My question is, there's been a lot of talk about the negatives of 2024 in the UFC, but what are your top 3 things that you are thankful for in the 2024 UFC year? Thank you for the hours of effort and dedication you put in. I am thankful for MK. Luke, Dean has a point. This year hasn't been all shit stains. I haven't loved the direction of the matchmaking. There's been a lot of last-minute head-scratching decisions. We did get some huge events. We did get some great fights. We had some great stories and developments. Can you give me one thing that you're happy that went down on the MMA Global Leader this year that you're thankful for? Besides Ilia Toporia's rod,
the rise of Ilia Topuria, I think, has been, and him. I mean, honestly, to me, the biggest 2 things were him and Alex Pereira this year, right? Yeah. I mean, between the 2 of them, you got 5 ridiculous main events or different levels of significance or whatever. But like those two carried basically the biggest chunk of the year that I can think of. I think Boatan becoming the celebrated figure that he is. I mean, it's hard to dislike from what I can tell. His stature and in relevance and importance has only exploded in this time. And then obviously Topuria wasn't as active, and we've all been over this a million times, but I think somebody going through and taking a division that has champions as celebrated and revered and as talented as a guy like Volk and Max are at featherweight, and then stopping both of them is rare historically and important to appreciate. And I think between the two of those things, that's been, to me, those have been the high water marks for sure. BC, I wonder if you have a different feeling about high water marks.
Certainly. I mean, I think the MVP of 2024 is Alex Pereira for bailing out the promotion so often, for delivering on the highest levels, for having 3 title defenses in 175 days, which is just absurd. The Topuria rise was incredibly fun. I'm thankful. I got to say this. I'm thankful that UFC and Dana White tried the Sphere, because somebody had to do it. I'm glad that the UFC, which, well, I want to say they had the finances. In this case, it took Turki Al-Sheikh, and there was, reports of some rumblings between Dana and TKO, but they landed the plane. They pulled it off. And if you're going to be following a promotion that's this successful financially, you would want them to be the industry leaders and taking chances like this, and maybe trying to elevate the way we watch fights. I thought all of that in the end was noble and ambitious in a good way. And I'm glad they went through with it without question. I'm starting to, even, it's weird, Luke. The argument against the watered down matchmaking has always seemed to have been, well, hey, we get a UFC card basically every Saturday. That's not true, but it's close enough. I'm wondering if you are like me, where you're finally coming around, or maybe just getting numb to the watered down matchmaking and really just coming back to the idea that, yeah, I guess I would rather have a card every weekend, even if I'm making fun of the depth of it and talking about why is this back at the Apex, than not having anything at all.
No, I would much rather have nothing at all. That's an easy choice for me to make.
You'd much rather have quality. I mean, I get that. I'd prefer consistent quality. I don't know. I think I'm getting,
dude. I mean, the NBA being like, hey, we have games on every Saturday, but then like 2 of the weekends every Saturday are the fucking Wizards. I don't need to. You know what I mean? Like, this is not, watching this kind of basketball is not interesting. It doesn't. I've tried to watch the Wizards many times this season. They're fucking terrible. So no, I don't need that. I just let me know when the Mavs are playing, and I'll watch Luka Doncic.
I don't know. I've come around after complaining most of the year to enjoying the combination of row 8 and some of these donk-filled fight night undercards. You know what
they do nothing for me.
Unless Bizping's one of the announcers, then I'm not thankful at all. I'm also look. It's weird. I'm thankful that the promotion appears so aggressively bent on making this Jones Aspinall fight. I'm leery of saying that out loud, because your response would be, "Isn't that what a promotion is supposed to do? Actively, aggressively try to make the biggest fight possible." But it's like, for as much as they filleted John to get him back out here, delayed the Stipe fight unnecessarily another year, they seem to have drawn the line in the sand, and basically like, no, Jones will make this fight. We'll make it happen. I'm thankful for that, Luke. They could have stood on their own BS and let John walk away or whatever. But I'll
say this: we've never been closer. How about that? Never been closer. So take it for what it's worth.
Yeah. I'm also thankful for Eileen Perez. Fiona, Luke. She makes fun fights happen, and weird things happen after those fights. I like weird people.
This is the Argentine who twerks.
Yes, I like Nate the Train in the UFC. I'm thankful for the fact that when a fight night card launches, I'm not looking for that rising prospect. I'm looking for who are the weirdest people on the card, and will they entertain me? And they often do. These are some of my favorite fighters, Luke. These second and third tier fighters who are more known for their craziness. It's fun to watch them put together win streaks and see if they can crack contendership while at the same time being batshit crazy. I like that side of MMA.
I like the regional side of MMA in a different kind of way because people are still striving in like really, really difficult circumstances, and there's just a lot of the unknown about the future. I like that, and I like super high quality MMA, but I don't the in between stuff.
I was thankful that I got to call a boxing fight for the UFC, Luke, and go to Dublin. So
yeah, that's fun. Yeah, that's great. Definitely.
Let's see what Uncle Dana's got around the corner for the new year. We'll see. Let's keep this going. Des from Cork, Ireland, Luke. You remember he sent us that great Christmas card our first year.
Des, back up on that is.
Yeah. Yes. Des says, imagine the scenario. For the first time in history, a duo has been voted as co-presidents of the U.S., Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell. Choosing from only MMA fighters or MMA personalities from any nationality, please select individuals for the following positions: Vice President, Secretary of the Treasury, Defense and Education, Attorney General, Press Secretary. And he says, coincidentally, Ireland goes to the polls today, Friday, November 29th, in our general election. Enjoy Thanksgiving. It's Des. Luke, if you and I were co-presidents of the new U.S.,
leave the question up so I can see all the spot. Yeah.
Who would be our vice president from MMA circles? Fighters, personalities. I mean, can we bring Chael in here?
I think Chael has to be press secretary.
Okay.
Secretary of Education, you could do Rosie Sexton, who has a PhD and was a scientist. What is that face? Just because my name is Brian Campbell, and if I don't know things, they must be bad. Hi everybody, these are my opinions. Enjoy them. Who's got a law degree? Anybody got a law degree?
Can we put
Jed Meshew,
Francis Ngannou as Secretary of Defense, Luke?
Okay, Francis, you can go put in Secretary of Defense. Jed Meshew has a law degree. We'll make him Attorney General. God, can you imagine that, Derby? I'm prosecuting people who don't sell vapes. Secretary of the Treasury. If Conor wasn't, apparently a horrible person, I guess you would nominate him. But who do we trust with? Oh God, no, none of the Bitcoin bros. I'm not interested in your fucking crypto.
How about Hunter Campbell? Can he be our
Secretary of the Treasury?
Yeah,
I'll go with that.
Okay,
and that kind of rounds us out. But did we pick a VP? We have to have a woman in the cabinet. We got to have a woman in the. Oh no, because Rosie Sexton will do Secretary of Education.
Can we put Valentina on a roll, Luke? She'd be great.
No, she'd be really bad.
What about Tim Kennedy, Secretary of Defense?
Yeah, you know what? He is getting. So I saw these former Special Forces guys accuse him of stolen valor, or at least someone told me that they accused him of stolen valor. So I have to see more about that. But
if you like your freedom regarding Kennedy, Luke, thank him, right?
You know what? You know who our VP should be? So we can blame him for all of our problems and then use his skills to help us look better. Shaq Majori. Shaq. Shaq Majori. Shaq Majori can be our VP. We can get that coveted Iranian vote out of Orange County.
Yeah, he is the Persian prince there. Thank you, Des, for your question. Obviously, we want all right-wingers, Luke, in MAGA hats.
Can't win an election in this electorate without it, my friend.
Yeah, maybe we can get Pat Miletich to run the January 6th committee, maybe. Maybe. Let's hear from William. He says, Luke in BC, open note grappling here.
Oh, he's great.
What does that mean? What is the open note?
That's his screen name. This is a dude. He has a school in Austin, Texas. He does a lot of really good analysis, MMA analysis more generally. Obviously, excels in jiu-jitsu analysis in particular. He's great.
Do you think he puts the anal in an analysis, Luke?
I think you put the anal in.
Okay.
I just don't even know what to do.
Well, William says, happy Thanksgiving. Can y'all talk about the UFC's decision to move into professional grappling? What does that mean for the UFC, for Fight Pass? Do you care? And do you think other casual fans could care? Luke, I want to add on that the rumors appear to be that a Ultimate Fighter style reality show will be coming soon to Fight Pass or maybe ESPN Plus. I'm not sure, but it will surround the UFC's move into grappling. What can that do for this sport? Are you fired up about this?
I'm not going to watch the Ultimate Fighter version or whatever they're going to call it. I have mixed feelings about it. And the reason why I say that is because, let's talk about the good first. The good is obviously pretty straightforward. First, the more that they invest in grappling and not dumb shit slap, like I think the happier all of us are going to be. Just on that level alone, that'd be great. But obviously, like, what can it do for the sport of grappling? BC, you would probably agree, if any entity in combat sports has a chance of making grappling cool, CJI did something unbelievable. But you know, the UFC's muscle and their resources and their access, there's just what they can do is obviously without peer. The Fight Pass Invitational, I know you may not have caught some of that stuff. Those are, for the most part, pretty quality events. They're at least fun. They're typically well matched. There's no noteworthy names. The rule set's pretty good. There's just a lot to like about it. Not perfect. There's some complaints too, but you get the idea. You just have to imagine there's like if they really wanted to, there can actually test, like, can jiu-jitsu be popular in America? And how popular can that be? If anyone is going to give us an answer to that question, it's probably going to be because the UFC is backing. The thing that gives me a little bit of pause about all of this is, of course, their monopolistic ambitions. TKO having a hand in boxing going forward, having obviously the biggest hand in MMA, and now sport jiu-jitsu, and who else knows, gives me a little bit of pause. And in particular, one thing I really don't want to see are grapplers in their prime signing contracts with an entity that would hold them down and not allow them to, like, you know, mix and match everywhere as they currently do, you know, without, in the same way that MMA fighters are tied down. Do I want to see that in grappling? Fuck no, I don't want to see that in grappling. So it really depends on what they do. And I don't know what they're going to do, but I understand cases for optimism and pessimism just the same.
Yeah, I would either add weed like High Rollers does or add striking.
High Rollers? Oh yeah, the weed thing. Yeah.
Then it wouldn't be grappling anymore, Luke. That'd be the preferred move. But I mean, Mikey Musumeci is now saying that he's considering MMA as well. Are you interested in that?
No, I think he would probably be terrible at MMA. Yeah.
All right. Hey, let's go to Robert. He's from Sydney, Australia. Question for the elite professional boxing only. He says, why is holding permitted? Wouldn't the sport be better off if holding was as illegal as a punt to the nuts? NB, this question does not relate to fighting on the inside. Thanks for the show. Great fun. So, Luke, I mean, holding gets you warned. But I guess what he's saying is why are referees sort of liberal in allowing the holding process to take place before then they'll jump in and separate them? Yeah, you know, I don't know, Luke. I mean, I'm trying to put this into words here. It is a part of the game. You can slow down your opponent. You can clinch when you're hurt. Give yourself a second or two. Would you prefer an outlawing of that altogether?
I don't see any problem with the way the rules are as I understand them. I think there could be different levels of enforcement. That's a thing you could try. Yes. But I don't have a problem with the people want to tinker with the rules rather than tinker with how the rules are enforced. And I think that, though, you really have to understand there's two separate problems, and changing the rules is big. Changing how they're enforced, you can always go back on that without fucking up the rule itself.
Yes.
So let's see about changing enforcement.
You're right. And look, elite referees have strike zones like baseball umpires. You know, certain guys like Kenny Bayless is not going to let you hold. He'll eventually get that warning out for excessive holding. Other guys allow it too much. I'll never forget Luis Pabon, the referee, allowing Vladimir Klitschko to jab Alexander Povetkin and then hold and lean all over him round after round and really just muck up that fight. So in those cases, when you get a way too liberal referee, yes, it does make what Robert's saying true. Why would we allow this unnecessary stalling? But it comes down to the referee being a stern warner and jumping in and realizing when it's just, hey, we're on the inside, nothing's happening, we're going to clinch, let's separate them. And then realize when someone is actively trying to muck up and slow down the fight. That's when you got to be really on your P's and Q's. So yeah, I agree with you, Luke. Let's go to Josh. He says, what's up, bozos? A South Jersey donk here. Luke, this guy just talks like any other Jersey person, right? When is the last time the UFC held an event in Philly, he asks. Seems weird to me that they head to Newark and New York City once a year, but ignore a fight fanatic city and major metro area like Philly. Happy Thanksgiving. Luke, I will say that there currently is new administration atop the Philadelphia the Pennsylvania Athletic Commission, but for years it was run by a gentleman who was considered some of the the harshest, more conservative of the way things are run. A guy who preferred same day weigh-ins, for example. And I know for boxing, that really limited the amount of major fights that you regularly see go to the Philadelphia area. Now you're seeing it it go up of late. Jaron Boutennis had 2 matchroom cards there. But I wonder if that's the same way previously in MMA, where it's just known as a very strict commission, so it doesn't entice people the same way Texas and Florida might.
Took the words right out of my mouth. When we saw Gerard Ennis fight Royman Villa, was that not in Atlantic City because they didn't want to do the fight in Philly?
Yes.
Now, again, to your point, they've since had some changeover in leadership, but UFC's also had bad luck in Philly. Remember Nate Marquardt, not Philly, but Pennsylvania, when they had Nate Marquardt on that card. I believe that was the Pennsylvania card where he had the TRT pop and it was this whole scandal and everything went bad. So they've just kind of stayed away for that reason. I agree that Philly is a fight in town. You know, I don't think it's like some fucking hardcore destination for MMA fandom. I think that's a little overstated, but sure. Could they go back there more regularly because they make other stops along the East Coast? Yes, but Newark gets the halo effect of being close to New York City with a very good commission, and New York City is New York City. Philly is neither of those things. So people in Philly need to pipe down a little.
I'm trying to think of like when I think of Philly and UFC, what's the first fight that comes to mind? It's got to be Anderson Silva and
UFC 101.
Forrest Griffin, correct?
That's right, UFC 101. BJ Penn, I think Kenny Florian was on that card too. Fantastic card. I mean, that back-to-back of UFC 1, actually UFC 99, 100, and 101 was like a phenomenal moment in time. But absolutely. And then who do you think of when you think of Philly MMA? You think of obviously Sean Brady presently, but Eddie Alvarez back in the day. I mean, there's something to adore there, but it's not New York City and it's not the New Jersey Athletic Commission. So there you go.
Are you excited about Knucklemania coming to Philly with Eddie Alvarez against Jeremy Little Heathen Stevens? The hardest
I have a Brazzers subscription, so I'm good.
Okay, all right. Colin says, Luke and BC,
Knucklemania.
What is with the average MMA fan's obsession with figuring out who the best boxer is in MMA? It seems like every few weeks there's a conversation around who's the best boxer, but MMA striking goes way beyond pure boxing. It seems like a weird little sibling mindset to the other major combat sports when we're never having large scale conversations about who has the best striking, wrestling, or jiu-jitsu in MMA. Hopefully you both have had a wonderful Thanksgiving with your respective families. It's Colin. Luke, does Colin have a point here, or should he shut the hell up?
I don't think he should shut the hell up, but I disagree with the framing of that. Like, you have to understand the evolution of things. Yes, for a long time, the question was who was the best striker in MMA, right? Who is the best striker? And then a lot of that involved people who were, for the most part, either dynamic kickers or had a very competent and included part of their kicking game. But what we've seen is that guys who can press with their boxing have just starting to have a lot more success, at least the better ones at it. And I also feel like you've seen MMA fighters cross over into boxing and look quite poor, granted at the end of the run or old or whatever, but there is a certain refinement that comes with boxing because it is so narrow in rule set compared to MMA, and because it is so much more difficult to succeed in that sport relative to the amount of people who are trying it, right? It is a much bigger amateur system, many more people you have to compete against, relatively speaking. It's harder to break through. It's a much more refined skill set. So when you talk about people being like the best boxer in MMA, the reason why that's relevant is people ask who the best wrestler is, who the best grappler is. These are relevant things too. But what they're trying to figure out is who's got that certain kind of level of special refinement to their striking game. And that's why it's kind of important. And so I don't think is it the most important question? Of course not. But is it a reasonable one to ask and kind of have fun debating? I absolutely think so, yes.
Long Island Luke letting us know over our chat here, Luke, that Philly also housed Barboza versus Gaethje, that fantastic short brawl in 2019. And he says that Newark also pays a $5 million location fee for UFC to go there, which probably helps. We all know that
pay fees, though. Yeah.
Yeah, we all know that going to New York for any combat sport raises the taxes aggressively. So maybe it's easier to be in that New York City metro area by frequenting Newark. And then, you expose people to Newark Penn, Luke. And, that has a way of really like lessening the population and controlling.
If you're a homeless person and you need to trim your balls in the sink at the bathroom in Penn Station, use that, please, next time.
All right, let's skip ahead here to David, who says, I apologize if this has been asked before, but I feel like I've noticed that the careers of unretired fighters who land jobs on the before Fox and now ESPN analyst desk seem to lose a step. Examples: Alan Juban, Tyron Woodley, Dominic Cruz, Anthony Smith, even the likes of Michelle Watterson and Walt Harris have been on the desk. Question: do the distractions entailed by an analyst type job take meaningful time away from a fighter's ability to focus and train or be 100%? Or are the fighters chosen for the job barely recognized for their careers when they are already mostly past their prime? For some strange reason, I think I know that Luke's answer is going to be, but had to shoot my shot anyway. Love the show. Day one donk here. Yours truly, David. Luke, is David off on this?
Yeah, I don't think that's how it works. A lot of those roles you have to get invites for, even within the UFC. Some there's a tryout for. And I think that is how Felder got one of those gigs. There was a tryout for commentary. He was obviously quite good at it, and it went to him, but it wasn't like, well, that was the process in play. But I think that what you're seeing is guys who can do that job well, Joban, Felder, when they're getting near-ish the end of their run, or at least what they feel like they want to even do at that point, they begin to start laying the foundation for this other kind of work, either by putting out feelers, getting invited, just sort of making it known that this is a thing that they want. These are people who are feathering the bed, laying a nest, whatever metaphor you would like, BC, ahead of time. And so, people are like, oh, well, now their career's starting to slip. It was going to slip at that point probably anyway. Now they at least have another avenue,
Yeah, definitely. I don't think it's a correlation between become a desk analyst and your career falls apart. I think it's timing of how long it takes to build your star and personality and charm and charisma for the organization to take notice of you as a potential analyst. And then I think the point you made, where a lot of these guys can get established quickly as analysts, and then you can start realizing, I don't need to push myself as much to take fights I don't need, because I'm building this cushion and this transition so they can be more selective. But yeah, I think that all comes together. Look, I always am impressed, and it doesn't happen all the time in sports, when someone in their prime already begins that transition. I remember Roy Jones did it while he was still an active in his prime fighter with HBO. Rick Barry in the 1970s as a prime basketball player was coming in the finals and the playoffs and being a lead analyst role. Do you think we'll ever see that more? Or is that, to amend this question, do you think that's the hardest thing to do, to be a championship fighter, a champion in your prime, and juggle the demands of broadcasting with fighting?
Broadcasting is actually pretty hard if you do it right. Yeah, people are like, oh, you just show up and talk. You can do that. That's true.
DC does that, yeah. He's great at it, though,
Okay, but at a bare minimum, he at least pays somebody to do research. Like, even then, he doesn't literally just show up and talk. There's some other level of prep involved. That's kind of funny, though. Although I like DC when he's on. Like, when he's doing well, he is very good,
I think he's the second best announcer in the UFC family.
Okay, but the point I'm trying to make is, for the rest of us, you can't, BC will tell you this, like, if you don't do a lot of homework, it just shows. You won't hold that job for very long. And so, yeah, it's like a time-consuming job. Talking is not necessarily the hardest part of it. All the other ones are. And I think if you're going to do that well and do it consistently, it's going to be hard if you're actually got a fight career going. Fight career is really hard, and I certainly think that, like, those two things can be juggled by, like, the right person at the right time, but not by most.
We see some stars, championship level, that have transitioned nicely. DC, Michael Bisping, who's not my favorite, but he's been, an announcer and an analyst for a while. Do you ever look around the roster and say, like, man, what if Izzy took a try at it now? What if, would that personality work? I always said, obviously now is a bad time to bring it up, but I always wondered what Conor would have looked like in that role. I wouldn't expect him to be the traditional style, but you have to think of somebody like DC, where they bring so much entertainment and charisma along with the actual analysis. Is there anybody that you wished had tried it out or think could be good at it, Luke?
Not. I think Michael Chiesa could probably be pretty good at it. On the boxing side, I think Chris Algieri has become really good at it.
Yeah, but I'm saying, is there any big name fighters that we haven't seen do this that you would be intrigued to see them give it a try?
The way I interpret that question is, have you heard any big name fighter who is especially articulate at sharing ideas, verbalizing concepts, anything like that? And the answer is no, I've not.
Yeah,
but,
Dom Cruz, another big name guy who has.
But again, to the same point you raised, that kind of already doing that,
Yeah.
So, no one else I can think of at the present moment. No.
Imagine if they brought in Rousey to be one. Just imagine that.
I literally don't think she could finish a broadcast without storming off.
Oh wow, it looks like she puts the broad in broadcast, and I'm like, dude, come on, that's just so unnecessary. All right, here's Mike. Happy Thanksgiving from here in Canada. He says, what do you think is the next country to have a boom period, Luke?
Costco guys.
Of top fighters. I don't know what sport he's talking about. I'm going to assume MMA based on our clientele. So Luke, It used to be Brazil. Right now it's certainly those Eastern European / Asian, Dagestan area, Kazakhstan. I mean, there's some hammers coming out of that area, Luke. We know that. What's the next area of note? New England?
Kazakhstan. I think Kazakhstan's going to have a big push. They've got regional fights I've watched a few of them. High-level guys up and down there getting a lot of experience, showing a lot of well-rounded ability, very similar to what you see with the Dagestanis. A lot of Sambo tradition there.
We're seeing China make big moves, for example.
China, I think, will have a big moment. It's hard to say exactly how far away that is. It doesn't seem like we're on the cusp of one, but maybe.
Where's Japan when we need them right now to make like
superstars? Japan had a peak 20 years ago.
What about France? They got some.
France has a bright future. Germany has barely scratched the surface. Spain has barely scratched the surface. There's a lot of those places, I think, that are going to have big next 5 to 10 years. Mm-hmm.
Indeed. Let's go over to Dylan. What's up, boys? Who wins in a fight? Prime Robbie Lawler versus Prime Justin Gaethje.
Prime Robbie Lawler.
Thankful for everything you both have given to the MK Nation. Yeah, at the peak of their primes, you would say Robbie Lawler was a more dangerous, better overall fighter?
Yes, beat better competition, was bigger. I mean, 170 versus 155 or could take a punch. I mean, obviously the Nick Diaz first fight, you would say no, but over time it showed that he could. Yeah, I just feel like, Justin Gaethje, even in his prime, got hit a lot. You just can't get hit by prime Robbie Lawler that often.
Dude, I love how fun, first of all, how fun in general Robbie Lawler fights are. I think, along with Gaethje, one of the most rewatchable on UFC Fight Pass of anybody. But how many of those championship fights think the two Hendricks fights where Lawler would be like dangerous and dominant for 2 rounds and then take like 2 rounds off, knowing that he's going to come back in round 5 and bring hellfire to you.
Dude, he would. I remember there were several UFC DVDs that I bought back in the day where they'd be like, dude, what the fuck happened in round 2? His corner, I'd be like, oh, I took it off. I just took that shit off. I didn't care. He was notorious for that because he knew he had the one fucking hitter quitter right here. All he needed was just a moment, and he'll find it. Look at his career, dude. Yeah, that's an easy. I mean, I'm not even trying to disrespect Justin Gaethje, who was a phenomenal guy in his own right, but that's just too much firepower from Robbie Lawler. Sorry.
Dude, I miss prime Johnny Hendricks. He was, I mean, I know it was maybe USADA affiliated, but he was fun. Prime Hendricks was fun, Luke.
He could, I mean, the dude, he looked like he sent, you've seen the Avengers Infinity War, right?
No.
Do you remember?
No.
You didn't see the first Avengers Infinity War?
I don't know. I don't really watch that. I saw Thor, Love and Thunder and Black Adam. I don't think I'm going back, Luke,
Well, there's a scene where like one of the sorcerers or whatever the fuck their name is from who was the guy at Long Island, Luke? You don't have to like get on screen, but
I don't know anything about Marvel or any of that shit.
You two motherfuckers don't know Fogo de Chao, don't know Marvel. What do you know? What do you know is a
question. The highest
MMA
class.
and marijuana.
Yeah. And food poisoning, apparently, but good luck to Long Island Luke on that regard.
Anyway, there's a point where there's a scene where Hulk gets hit and it got sent out of his soul, and he just goes flying back like this. And it's what I think Hendricks flooring John Fitch reminded me of that. I just never seen someone just go like,
Dude, remember when he did that to Campman too?
Yep. Campman didn't have the same kind of chin though. That's a little different.
But just laid him the freak out with one of those left hammers.
Yeah.
Let's go over to dude. Also, Hendricks looked like he should have been driving a truck with like a dip patch. You know what I mean?
He probably does to this day. BC.
Yeah. Tim says, hey, dear boys, what's your favorite part of a fight cycle? Is it 1, the pre-fight buildup and prognostications, 2, the fight itself, 3, the post-fight analysis and looking forward to future matchups. Sincerely, Rolo from Cleveland. And P.S. Brian, congratulations on the publication of your autobiography entitled "I've Never Been on OnlyFans Except When I'm Breathing." Oh, that's a good one. That's pretty good. Luke, if there are 3 parts of the fight cycle, the build-up and the promotion of it, the fight itself, or the post-fight analysis and prognostication, which is your favorite?
Yeah, easily I mean, how can this even be a question? The answer is the fight itself is by far the most interesting. The post-fight is the second most interesting, and the pre-fight is for the donks. Pre-fight's for the donks.
I disagree.
Raise your hand if you're a donk, BC. Raise it. Put that motherfucking paw in the air. There you go.
I will say that my favorite part is number 1. The anticipation, the optimism that you're allowed to have because you haven't seen the fight yet. It hasn't sucked. You can talk yourself into it like I've had to do in boxing for years. I love the build, Luke. The build is just anything can happen. Dude, think about it. When you get a great build where it's saucy, there's pushing at the weigh-in, there's trash talk, sometimes it doesn't even matter if the fight lives up to the expectations because I'm telling you, I can't believe that you dislike. It's one thing to say, no, I prefer the fight itself. In theory, we all should prefer the fight itself. But you're basically completely dismissing the fanfare of it, the excitement, the hype building.
I get that it's a integral part of the fight experience. I certainly would never in a million years challenge it. But it's integral for the donks. That's who it's integral for, like the diggity donks.
Like, count me in, Luke. Okay, if peeing your pants is cool, then yeah. All right, let's go to Skull Murphy. He says, "Happy holidays, y'all." Luke, what's your favorite area or town in the DMV area?
Ooh.
And what's your least favorite? And BC, does your hometown have a rival? Dude, my hometown of Naugatuck, Connecticut has a monster rival for the last 130 something years. Every single Thanksgiving when we take on that dirt hole town of the Ansonia Chargers, Luke. You know what I mean? Stanford Steve is one of the biggest stars in Ansonia history. What a bunch of, even though I love Steve, what a bunch of absolute dirt holes down there, Luke. You know what I'm saying? For years, we used to own that rivalry, and now Noggy really only wins like once every 10 years. And it's very humiliating against just such absolute dirt baggagery that comes out of Ansonia. We are north, so the Naugatuck River flows south, so they get all of our chemicals and shit for years, Luke, okay? What's your least and most favorite area of the DMV? Chevy Chase, Luke?
I don't ever get over to north. Dude, it's interesting. So the city is built on a quadrant system: northeast, southeast, southwest, northwest. The main one that everyone considers DC is northwest. I have never in my entire life lived in Northwest. I have always lived outside of that. So you're talking about Chevy Chase is on part of DC and on the other side. There's actually 2 Chevy Chases. There's one in Maryland and then one in DC. But no, I don't ever go to that area. I don't ever hang out in that area. I would say that, here's what's interesting. When I was a kid, DC had a real Chinatown, like a real Chinatown. And then that all changed in the late 80s and early 90s. They all moved to the suburbs. So like if you're looking for like dope Asian food in the area, and I do mean that like Chinese, Japanese, Laotian, you name it, all the different kinds. There's so many. Annandale has it, Rockville has it. Like there's so many places that have awesome, obviously in Fairfax as well, fantastic Asian food. But if we're talking like just places that I like to visit in the area, it's got to be Old Town Alexandria. Old Town Alexandria is like, it's beautiful. It's really, 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 really beautiful.
Do you like Chinatown?
I do like Chinatown, but it's not Chinatown anymore. I mean, there's a couple of like really important Chinese businesses that have stayed.
Yeah.
But the vast majority have left. It's just it's depressing in that sense.
All right.
Worst part of the DMV, that's a great one. Dude, Springfield, Virginia sucks my balls. And I hope everyone from Springfield, Virginia hears me saying that. That fucking place blows. And I can say this with great confidence because my dad lived there when my parents divorced for a little bit of time, and I had to spend some time out there.
Did he have divorced dad vibes at the time?
Dude, my dad is the fucking... You ever seen that picture of Shavkat Rakhmonov with like an eagle on one hand and like a wolf in the other, and he's got... If that was being a divorced dad energy, that's my dad is Shavkat Rakhmonov. Like the most divorced man you can fathom. Okay?
So wait, Bald spot, ponytail, and convertible, or what?
No. Didn't have the ponytail, but definitely infrequent showering. I mean, let's just set that
Did
up.
he have a sports
right
car?
away.
Please tell me he bought a sports car after it.
He didn't, but he at the time dated a woman who had a sports car, and the license. This is it's long since changed, but had a license plate that said Pizzazzy. I fucking swear to God. I've never told that story. Pizzazzy. How 80s and 90s divorced dad is that shit when you're driving around with a Pizzazzy sports car convertible? Holy fucking shit, bro.
Oh god.
So anyway, Springfield blows. There's nothing interesting about it.
Okay.
It's just the intersection of highways and 7-Elevens. Go fuck yourself, Springfield.
Silver Spring, Maryland blows.
Silver Spring, Maryland's okay. The Fillmore is there, and I go to a lot of concerts there. You can also bike, from DC to Silver Spring. There's actually 2 Colombian restaurants in Silver Spring, one of which has a Colombian grocery store inside of it. So I don't shit on Silver Spring. I kind of like Silver Spring a little bit. It's not great, but it's all right.
All right. If you wanted to get killed, which section would you go to first in Greater DMV?
I mean, I hate to say this, but I think the place with the highest crime rates are probably going to be in Prince George's County. That's where all the great athletes, or many of the great athletes anyway, are from. Kevin Durant is from Seat Pleasant. I lived for a time in PG County when this house was getting repaired, and I had to spend time like renting an apartment like month over month because this place was still like under construction. I lived in a place called Oxon Hill. Now, Oxon Hill now has like the MGM casino. It's like totally different. But dude, back then, I just could not believe how much daily crime I witnessed living in Oxon Hill, Maryland. And I lived off a place, if you're anyone from the area will know, off Indian Head Highway. Not for the faint of heart. Like just a very, very rough area. This is circa 2005. You're probably there, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean there's not good places in PG County, but it's got a lot of rough areas too.
I wish you had, been able to live in one town or one school system your whole life so you could feel what a real high school rivalry is like, Luke. I know you had a cup of coffee with Valdosta and their, wars with the Lima Brothers High School, but
it's only the winningest high school football team in the country, but
nobody really cares that much. They care more about the Naugatuck Valley League, the NVL.
Netflix has a show about my high school. Do they have one about yours? I don't think that they do.
No, they don't. They really
NFL Films has a documentary about my high school. I don't think that they have.
Yeah, but is it really your high school? You were there for like 2 weeks.
So 2 years, and my brother graduated from there. So, did I graduate from there? That kind of is the real demarcation line.
Where did you graduate from? Marietta High.
Marietta High. I went there junior, senior.
Did you?
By the way, changing high schools in the middle of high school, 0 out of 10. Do not recommend. Not fun. Not
getting laid from that transaction at all.
I don't know. I eventually did, but my junior year was a rebuild year. You know what I'm saying? We had to build through the draft. You know what I mean?
Definitely. We've got one more from Adam. Hello, BC and LT. What is your favorite Thanksgiving leftovers meal? So, Luke, let's say you had Thanksgiving at your house and then you had access to all of the leftovers. When you go to make a perfect next day Thanksgiving leftover lunch, what is that? Because you're reaching for your favorites at that point.
Yeah.
Favorites only.
The answer is very simple. Mostly carbs, protein, and gravy. So let me give you an example. Here's how I'm filling it up. We're going to get leftover mac and cheese. Boom. Leftover whatever they make, potatoes of whatever variety of potatoes they made. Did they crisp them up? Did they not? Doesn't matter. You're throwing them on there. Then you're going to get some of the leftover meat that still looks the best. Whether you like the breast or like the wing or whatever. Then you put that on there, and then you just cover that motherfucker in gravy. Yeah. Fire it up in the microwave to get it nice and hot. And then that's what I'm eating. I'm not going back to salads. I'm not going back to veggies. I'm not doing that.
Like my dad comes from an era where you have turkey sandwiches for days afterwards. I'm not into that. I'm going to take a piece of meat pie in the center of the plate and then build around it strategically. Like I'm playing Risk. I'm going to put the mashed potatoes, the corn, the stuffing, the cranberry sauce, but it has to be the cheap, no chunks cranberry sauce.
I always forget that you're one of the people that eats the shit out of the can. So
pure way.
nubs.
And
So
then
nubs.
you cover it in gravy. Actually, you cover it in corn and then you cover it in gravy. And yeah, it's the best meal. It's the best thing ever. Thank you very much. That's all we got for questions today, Luke. Thank you to our people for sending them in. By the time people will listen to this and watch this, it's Friday. So get ready. PFL going to be on shortly. But Luke, I hope you have a great rest of the holiday weekend. Unplug a little.
I'm going to see Moana 2. I'm going to take Tukes to see Moana 2.
Is that a Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson production?
I think he's in it, certainly. Played a big role in the first one, but hey, listen, it doesn't matter what I like. What matters is what she likes. So there you go.
There you go. I really just want to continue to wish the thanks, the love out to all the great fans who keep MK afloat. I mean, look, we've gotten to know so many of them. Their life. By the way, dude. I'm happy about this. A fella named Chandler, an MK donk, DM slid me and said, "Hey, dude, he said that because of MK, he became friendly with Damien the Donk. Remember MK Donk of the Year 2020? Do you remember that, Luke?"
Yes.
And this man, Chandler, says that Damien the Donk is alive and well, not incarcerated, living a happy life. They talk all the time. I don't know if he still watches our show. I don't know if he watches MMA anymore, but we put out a call out there, a wellness check, if you will. Seems like he's doing well despite having the kind of tattoos that will, get you a reputation in the pen.
A reputation? How about entry into a white supremacist gang?
Okay. Do you have a message for Damien the Donk at all?
I'm glad to hear he's doing well. I'm never going to be upset at hearing news that people are thriving. So whatever it is that he's doing that's making him happy, if it's us, if it's not, it doesn't matter. Keep doing that. That's all I care about.
All right, I got a great idea. One of my favorite things.
And ending this podcast now?
Shortly. One of my favorite things in this job is when we are, let's say, Radio Row for Boxing or the Bellator interview special we've done before at Mohegan, where it's just like, it's a run of people coming in. We don't know the order. We don't know who, but whoever slides in next, they're going to sit down with us. We're going to have fun interviews. I want to schedule an interview show, Luke, where you have no idea who's coming next.
I do that.
Okay. You agree to that?
I didn't say they were going to be good interviews, but I'd agree to
so no matter who comes onto that Zoom call.
I know what you're going to do. You're going to try and book Joanna. You're going to try and book John Jones. You're going to try and book the Avengers of people I don't want to talk to. Yeah.
I was thinking more like Appy and Damien the dog, but yeah, sure. You know what I mean? I'll go after John Jones. Why not? Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Appy. I'll just hang up. I'm just not,
Okay.
Click.
Well, let's make that idea reality in 25. But
try.
until then, happy Thanksgiving to you. Long Island Luke, I hope you feel better, sir. You can follow us right there on the socials. Like and subscribe if you haven't. Let's continue to take MK to the next level. Luke, my dream, my new goal is for at some point in the near future, people to go, hey, in hindsight, 2024 might not have been the best year for the MK brand, but those were my favorite shows they ever did. You think someone will ever say that?
No, I don't think that's really even remotely anything anyone's going to say.
All right, we always have next year, Luke. Thank you so much.
I will say this to everyone. I mean, it's quite sincerely. Obviously, thank you to everyone who has been a part of the MK experience from whatever day you have been on, and the longer the better. Separate from that, do not drink and drive, everybody. Do not fucking drink and drive.
Yeah.
Get an Uber, call a cab, do whatever the fuck you got to do. Do not get behind the wheel of a vehicle if you have been having some drinks and enjoying yourself, which is okay. Just don't drive afterwards, please. Text somebody, call somebody, Uber somebody. Do the right thing.
Yeah, and don't hang out with Conor McGregor.
Yeah, I can only go to bad places. Seems that way.
All right, that's it. That's all we got. MK for life. We are out of here.